Well, hello, this is Secret Golf, and this week, well, we're not doing a full tour report, so to speak. The PGA Tour taking a 2-week break before the new season gets underway, but we do have LIV Golf Boston taking place. Elk, this is the 4th LIV Golf Invitational. As I said, they're in Boston, well, just outside Boston, in a place called Bolton, Massachusetts this week, and it's been a busy week for LIV. We knew that was going to happen. There was a lot of rumoured signings. Everything was confirmed on Tuesday of this week before play gets underway on Friday.
Yeah, here we are. Diane, of course, everyone knows that we talk about the LIV golf tournaments. We report what we hear and what we see. This week, of course, it's moved up to Boston. Been talking to a couple of our Secret Golf contributors, whether it's Jason Kokrak, Pat Perez, now Mark Leishman are up there. Cam Smith, of course, signed this week. Huge signing for Greg Norman, LIV product. The golf course being reported, Diane, kind of soft this week, but a narrow, hilly, in very good condition, very tough in places, my players are saying. One thing I've noticed, Diane, is the LIV courses are not easy. Oh. They've taken a couple of par fives and made them par fours, as you found out. The course is soft. They do expect some good scoring. Greens are big and slopey, but, you know, LIV already, Diane, has a reputation of finding these good golf courses in these big markets. So this, I think, will be received in Boston as well as it has. I think of how this was received in Portland, how that was so much protested against, and there was a huge crowd, as we saw on TV. I think Boston will probably fare pretty well this week, don't you?
Yeah, well, I was reading some stuff from the locals in this town, Bolton, where the club is. The club's called the International. They're playing on the Oaks course, and it's a private 36-hole club out there. And I think local reaction has been pretty mixed. I read something from like the local newspaper website, and a lot of people saying that it's great, that it's going to bring a lot of tourism to the industry, and there's going to be a great buzz around the town over the next few days. Some other people with problems with Saudi Arabia and the human rights record that comes up all the time for obvious reasons. But yeah, I think like with anything right now, LIV is so split. Opinion on LIV is very divided. The golf world is divided. After the Tour Championship and Rory McIlroy winning, which was the perfect finish to the season for Jay Monahan and for the PGA Tour, Rory has been the real kind of like spokesperson for them. And we know that he's been working behind the scenes with Tiger, and there's all this going on, more money on the table for the guys going forward. So it was great for them. But I think really this month, with there being a break, a 2-week break on the PGA Tour before the new season begins, we've got 2 LIV golf events happening this month, and these 6 new players that have signed. September kind of belongs to LIV.
Yeah, it seems so. I mean, of course, this week, Cam Smith signing, who is number 2 player in the world. I guess he sat down with Jay Monahan. I just listened to these guys' interviews, listen to what they're saying, and try to report on this show about what we hear and our insider view of what we hear. You know, Cam, I guess, sat down with Monahan. Rory McIlroy called him after he won the Open Championship, talked to him about some of the changes that's coming to the PGA Tour. Of course, we saw Tiger and Rory sort of start this new proposal where they have $100 million in the PIP, and they may go to this sort of no-cut 60-man field where these guys have to play these 20 events. And, you know, my sources on the tour are telling me that a lot of guys don't want to, they don't want to be told what to do. They don't want to be told to play 20 events. We saw John Rahm come out and say, hey, you know, you're going to have to talk to Tiger and Rory about that. I don't know if I want to, I'm not going to just play because they make me. So I think the tour is trying to step along and try to sort of hold what they have, whatever assets they have left. Well, what they have great assets, of course, PGA Tour does. They want to hold those together. And if it means putting these 20 events on with huge money, $20 million purses, no cut, that tells me, Diane, what if then LIV goes to 60-man fields, no cut? Will that change the official World Golf Rankings idea? Because we all know that if LIV was doing exactly the same thing as the Tour, then one would concede that official world golf ranking points should be awarded to them. And then now we really do have a problem, because now we have a real big problem for the tour.
But LIV is still maintaining that they're a 54-hole event, and of course that throws up its own issues. But all the ins and outs of the tour and these extra elevated events, we don't know the ins and outs of that yet. We don't know how the guys are going to be able to get into those events, and the exact, are they going to allow, if it's 60 people, how do you get into that 60? Is it the FedEx Cup standings at the time? There's still a lot of unanswered questions when it comes to that. But I think from what we can take away from what Jay Monahan said last week, they're making an effort to move forward, to grow the product, to keep their players happy. There's going to be more money on the table, more money in the PIP, and this $500,000 earnings minimum for guys playing the tour. And then for the guys that are coming up from the Corn Ferry Tour and who are in like a lesser status, they will get $5,000 per missed cut. So there's more money on the table, and they're being proactive. But, let's talk about the guys that left the PGA Tour this week and went over to LIV. We had 6 new signings. Cameron Smith, it was the worst kept secret in golf for weeks. Joaquin Niemann, and we'll go back to talk about those two because I think they're going to be the real big losses. Mark Leishman, Cameron Tringali, Harold Varner III, and Anibarn Lahiri. So, Elk, what do you make of the guys that have defected from the tour and gone to LIV?
Well, they've made that decision. Obviously, I think everyone, and I've heard a lot of talking points through both sides here. And one of the things that we know for sure, that if a player leaves to go to LIV, they also know that they're taking all the money that's been offered. They are also possibly foregoing. Yes, they have basically given up their idea that they're going to be playing on the tour again. And 3, they're not probably going to get into any majors because their official world ranking is going to drop. So they know that going in. Now, when I listen to some of these guys and why they're going, it was interesting to start at the top when I heard about Cam Smith. Oh, by the way, I'll go back to Lahiri. Lahiri spoke on the Hindu News. I listened to a 20-minute article that he did yesterday, and he talked about how this all went down similar in the cricket in India, and how it was so hated in the beginning, and people just wanted to see the 4-day test match cricket. And then they went to this new format. He was obviously relating this format to similar to the cricket. Okay. But, the PGA Tour doesn't do anything for Anibarn Lahiri when it comes to India. There's 1 billion people over there. And I think of Greg Norman's model, and I've read some of it only online, where they want to go to all these different places. We heard Cam Smith speaking of going to Asia. When he was younger, I went to Asia. Shoot, I won the Thai Open in 1996, Diane, back in the day, and went through Asia, and that was fun. And I wonder if these guys, some of them, like Cam Smith, because he's already made the decision, right? There's no turning back now. Yeah. Is he looking forward to going over and, one of the interesting things that come out of all those interviews, I know I'm jumping around a little bit, but Cam Smith came out of the Greg Norman Academy, Diane. He graduated out of an academy that Norman did 25 years ago in Queensland. If it wasn't for that academy, Cam Smith would not have started and got onto the tour, and off he went. So you can understand the alliance there, of course. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. The President's Cup is an interesting one because Trevor Immelman has lost some really key members of his team, Cam Smith and Joaquin Niemann being right top of the list. We've heard that Niemann was very back and forth on his decision on what he was going to do. He's a big loss to the PGA Tour. So is Cam Smith. Cam Smith, who did say a few weeks ago, 2 points that I'm going back to. Number 1, he said that if we were going to hear of him leaving or anything that Cam Smith was going to do, we were going to hear it from Cam Smith first, which we didn't. And then he also said that he was, committed to being on the International President's Cup team and playing. We're losing Mark Leishman as well, obviously. They were a bit of a dynamic duo a couple of years ago. That's a hard one. And for you, who played on the only winning International President's Cup team, that has to sting a little bit.
Yeah, I think obviously this no talking to the press, like Cam said he would, is, measured, because what's going to happen? He's just going to get bashed some more. He's already made his decision. He spoke to the commissioner. I heard Harold Varner also. We didn't speak of his name today. He spoke to the commissioner himself personally and told him that he was doing this. Yeah, when Mark Leishman made a point yesterday that, you can actually qualify for the President's Cup international team by just playing Japan. We've had Japanese players qualify for our team, and his point was, hey, I understand that I need to be in good standing with the PGA, but maybe one day will it be possible that we just qualify off this tour to be, points wise to get into the President's Cup team. The President's Cup needs to be bumped up all the time. It's hard for us to win internationals, that is, when we're pulling players from different tours that have never been together and, never bonded and so on. So we've heard of all those stories. I mean, we had a great team in 1996. You're referencing when we won in Australia. I think it was 1996, but somewhere in there. Greg Norman and I were actually partners in all of the matches that year, and we had some great matches against Freddie Couples and Davis Love, who were the reigning World Cup champions who'd won it 3 times in a row, and it was enormous for Australia. By the way, the Australian tour, Roger Davis, who played the tour for many years, came out yesterday, Diane, said that the LIV players, Leishman and Cam Smith, or anyone else for that matter, will be allowed and welcome to play on the tour in Australia. And I wondered, when you think, I know that's not going to work today with the tour. I understand that. But I honestly know in Australian golf, it's better if Leishman and Cam Smith play and these other guys come down and play. It makes the field better. And I think Australians that want to see these top players, they're going to go out and watch them.
Yeah. And Cam Smith did say that was part of his reasoning for going to LIV, is that he wanted to get back to Australia more often and compete in events over there. Which, I mean, we say this all along. Everyone's got their own reason for going, and you can't knock them for that. Like, if they're being honest and upfront and they can make their own decision and they give their reasoning, fine. Harold Varner made some great points. And his statement that he released, I think, has been the most genuine out of any that I've read. And that he said that the money was just too good to turn down, and that it was going to not only help him and his family, he's got a son now, so that generational wealth, but also he throws so much into his foundation, and we know that he's so passionate about that, and he's really reinforced the point that the money is going to make a difference to other people that are, maybe struggling to get into golf, or kids that his foundation supports. He also said that he hated being hated, and he was feeling that lately. So it's again, Harold Varner was very open and honest, and I think there's a lot of respect for him out there because of it.
Yeah, we know why they're going. I mean, they've been made incredible offers, upfront money. Some of these are north of, $100 million for the top players like Cam Smith, Phil Mickelson, these kind of players, DJ. And then, when you start to hear the smaller, it's not smaller, Diane, but we're talking $50 million for some of these guys, $30 million. When you think of that kind of money to come over there and play, this is what's changing their decision. Now, what I do want to talk about, as you just mentioned there about the teams is what I hear a lot is what they're getting excited about. And I wanted to talk today a little bit. You and I have done a little more research. We know how this works, but we wanted to share with everyone why some of these players are getting excited about this team aspect.
And why they're getting excited about the money too, which obviously you talked about their signing on bonuses that they're getting, but they can make a huge amount of money out there. And we've also heard that maybe people's contracts are different, and maybe some of the lesser known guys, they get money up front and then they don't collect the winnings. Who knows? I think everyone's contracts are probably different, but I can't see that being the case for the likes of DJ and Cam Smith and these kind of bigger name guys. But I know it's not true for Pat Perez, because he's told me, in fact, that. So why don't we have just a little reboot on what's going on out there? We're going to start with the individual event on the LIV tournament, which is exactly the way we know how all golf is played. We'll forget about the team for a second, and we know that 120,000 goes to the last money and 4 million goes to the winner each week, Diane. So it's not, in my mind, it's not a true exhibition, because an exhibition, normally we're all paid by our agents, done a deal, and we all go and play. When you can move up in the listing each week and make more money,
That's not an exhibition. Sorry, that's my opinion. If I'm coming 20th and I shoot 65 the last day and make $2 million for finishing third, that is not an exhibition. Okay. Now, as the season goes along, Diane, the top 24 out of the 48 each week are gaining points. Only the top 24 gain points. They're gaining points into a jumbo event at the end of the season. Why don't you tell us about that one?
Yeah, so, I mean, if you look at the three winners we've had so far, Charles Schwartzel, Brandon Grace, Henrik Stenson, they've each won $4 million by winning these individual events. And I think it's really interesting to look at those names. Those aren't guys that were in like incredible form leaving the PGA Tour or the DP World Tour, whatever, to come and play in LIV. So those guys, especially Stenson, with all the controversy surrounding him giving up his Ryder Cup captaincy, went out there, won, got $4 million. Great. Now, we have 8 events in this LIV season, this series, and following the first 7 events, they're going to crown an individual champion. Now, for the top 3, they have a purse of $30 million.
But the top 24 will graduate to be in this event.
Well, it's not an event. It's just after the first 7 events. So
after the first 7 events, the top 24 are playing for a new purse.
Well, they have this money that they're going to give them as almost like a bonus. So yes. Whoever finishes number 1 is going to get an additional bonus of $18 million, which incidentally is the same amount that the winner of the FedEx Cup got. Coincidence. The second place will get $8 million, third will get $4 million. So as you say, they are being awarded points as they go. And after these 7 events, the top 3 guys are going to get an additional bonus on top of the money that they've made. So that's huge. If you're a points leader in that sense, after 7 events individually, you'll get $18 million extra. Ridiculous money.
So that tells me right there that there's incentive to play well. Okay. Now, let's go and talk about the team because, as you know, one of our friends, Pat Perez, is on the team, and he's taken an enormous amount of criticism for being the worst player on the 4 Aces team. But if he was on this podcast today, he would tell us he's the worst player. But he also has a strategy, Diane, when he talks about his team, and I'm going to get to that in just a minute. So we've talked about the individual that's going on. All the guys are playing in that, but each one of them are on a team. And we're going to use the 4 Aces because they've won 2 events, and we know everyone on that team really well. Dustin Johnson, Patrick Reed, Taylor Gooch, and Pat Perez. Yes. So how to win the team event each week, Diane? The first day of the event, which tomorrow, Friday, will be the first day in Boston LIV 4 event, they're going to take the 2 best scores out of the 4, go onto the scoreboard. The second round, Saturday, they take the 3 best scores of the day and add it to the 2 scores from the previous day. And, of course, the last round, they take 3 of the best scores to add for a total team event. And we know the 4 Aces have won 2 of them. The people are excited about this, Diane, because Pat will tell you that he hasn't been playing that well in the tournament, but his score is counted out of the 2 wins at 6 scores is counted 5 times. So he's told me on the phone, he goes, Elk, he said, DJ and Gooch and Reed are playing fantastic. He said, if I can go out there in the morning or go out early and shoot a 65 or a 66, take the pressure off then, and we win the team, that's what I'm going for. Okay. By the way, there is no early. It's the same time, but you get my drift.
And by winning, they're each picking up an additional check away from the individual earnings of $750,000. So
each. Yeah.
So this is why Pat has been rubbing his hands together, and this is why Pat was at the party last night wearing a 4 Aces embroidered Letterman jacket because he loves his team, and rightly so.
And of course, we'll finish that thought by thinking they are also earning points as teams finish each week to go into another bonus pool, which I'll let you explain.
So the final event, the 8th event, is going to be held in Miami, and it's the team championship. So they have a prize fund of $50 million for this team championship. And all 12 teams are going to receive a cut of this. So if you finish in last place, your team gets 1 million, and then obviously it's split 4 ways between each member of the team. So this is going to be like a match play bracket event over 4 days. And if whichever team ends up finishing in first place in this match play event, $16 million, which means each member receives 4 million. So again, huge amount of money at the end of this. I think the guys have to play in, is it for the individual? Maybe it's for the individual. They have to play in 4 events minimum. I don't think that's going to be an issue for these guys to...
That would be guys that are jumping in from out, not the contracted players. Contracted players have to play everything, but if you're coming from outside, like if you're coming off the Asian tour or you've been relegated, you come in, you'd have to get four under your belt to actually qualify for the individual.
Yeah, but this 8th event, the team championship, this match play 4-day event, again, a huge amount of money extra that, you know, if Pat and the 4 aces go on to win that, then Pat will be taking home a bonus of $4 million. So huge. So now we also know that there's team captains of each one of these teams. Diane, Dustin Johnson, of course, is a team captain of the 4 aces. And the reason that Pat got on that team was, quite frankly, was Dustin Johnson wanted to get Pat onto LIV, and he kind of recruited him. We know that this is going on throughout all these teams. We know now that the Australian team got strengthened, and Pat's well aware of this, and everyone else is as well. Now we've got Wade Ormsby, Matt Jones, Mark Leishman, and Cam Smith are now on a team together. Very strong team. I'm not sure. I haven't seen the fun. I have seen it, but I haven't memorized Joaquin Neiman. Did he go on to Sergio's team? No, he didn't. He's on a definite kind of lesser known team. I'll look it up right now while you're finishing your thought about the Australian team is called the Punch team.
And of course, in their business model, they talk about each one of these teams being very valuable, Diane. They talk about the vision of LIV Golf is for Dustin Johnson. We'll use that as an example. He is the team captain. He's a part owner of that team. I think he owns 25 or 30% of that team. So any sponsors that come in, if there's any sponsors come in, let's say it's TaylorMade or let's say it's Mercedes-Benz, all the team would be outfitted in that gear. And whatever that sponsorship money, the ownership to Dustin Johnson, he would take his cut on that team. So as these teams, Diane, when you think Lahiri, when he goes, when he goes to India and they play in India, do you think, what is your thoughts of, Lahiri being a hero in India, playing in front of 1 billion people over there? And will that impact? Surely anyone would think that getting their best player from India in front of Indians in India would be a smash hit, right?
Yeah, and that, I guess that was their train of thought, trying to get Hideki Matsuyama, who apparently turned down something in the region of $400 million. Because if you have, he's like the biggest celebrity in Japan. And
I'm assuming that they would think Matsuyama would put together a all Japanese team, which would be very appealing to the Japanese market, Asian market.
And not only that, but the sponsors. Companies are going to want to be part of that, and we know the huge money that's in media and tech in Japan. But that's a non-event now because Matsuyama has said that he's going to stay. But then, as you said,
here's a question for you, Diane. A very what about question. If Liv goes to India and Lahiri is the captain of that team or he's on that team, and Hero is one of the biggest sponsors of Tiger's event in the Bahamas. Hero, of course, is a motorcycle company in India. Will Mr. Hero pull out of Tiger Woods' event, Diane, and come over to LIV and sponsor Lahiri at the LIV event?
He could, but would you really want to ditch Tiger Woods for Anabar and Lahiri?
It depends if you want to show Hero in India, or will the tour let them do both or neither or one or the other?
I think a huge part of that has to be the media rights and the television rights, because right now they don't have that. So they're relying on streaming. They're streaming on their website and on YouTube. So I think if a worldwide TV deal is signed, then that's going to change things. But right now I can't see that a company would want to ditch Tiger and Tiger's event with all the publicity it's going to get for something that's just going to be streamed on live.com and on their YouTube. So I think a lot of that lies in the media rights.
Yeah. And of course, Mr. Hero or anyone else, does he have to adhere to what the tour tells him to do where he wants to spend his sponsors' dollars?
Yeah, I mean, I think with all of these sponsors, a lot of that has to be up in the air right now. And I think it's interesting that the tour has said that there's going to be these extra elevated events. We don't know what those events are going to be. So they have to be in constant communication with sponsors. Sponsors have to want that. They have to want to be one of these elevated events. I know that a lot of people are talking about the Waste Management WM Phoenix Open. Are they going to be one of these elevated events? Their tournament falls in a bit of a weird time because they're right before the Genesis Invitational Tigers event in Riviera, which is an elevated event. So I don't know, but the sponsors have to be having a lot of discussions with the PGA Tour right now because surely they want a piece of this pie.
Well, you and I were together with some PGA Tour players this week in Atlanta, and one thing we know for sure is you don't want to be your tournament next to a elevated event. Yeah. Because if you have an elevated event in the beginning of February and one in the end of it, all the good players are going to play those two, and the two in the middle are going to suffer. Mm-hmm. The other thing we heard from some of our tour players, Diane, which the easiest way to flush all this out, all these rules that Mr. Monahan came out and said for the tour, announced and so forth, is to just hand it over to the tour players because they know every scenario. They're going to figure it all out. And one of the things we've already heard is if you've got the top 60 players in the FedEx or on the tour, Diane, getting in these elevated events, how do you penetrate that 60? If you're outside, let's take Jason Duffner, who's going to play on tour this year for his 17th year in a row. He's back here at 126 on the money. How does he penetrate it? Of course, everyone's going to say play better, but is it even possible to get into the top 30 on the money list at the end of the season if 60 guys are playing for double the purse for 20 events? Mm-hmm. And so they're kind of figuring all that out, and they don't even know if it's possible for someone to be able to penetrate that upper tier, so to speak, to get into what we would call last week the Atlanta or the Tour Championship. Did that make sense, what I just said?
Yeah. Okay. I think there's a lot of unknowns about that right now, for sure. And not only are we waiting to hear, but it sounds like the PGA Tour players are waiting to hear as well. So we'll kind of wrap up. I just want to ask you, and I'll answer it too, but a kind of personal view of this all. With all these new names, and Bubba Watson is another one that we haven't seen tee up at LIV yet. He's going to be playing this week. With all the new names, and we know we've been talking about the extra money that these guys are playing for at the end of the season, are you getting more and more excited about LIV? Like, do you feel that your excitement this week is at a peak that it's been for LIV?
Well, it's an interesting question the way you pose it. I've watched all the LIV events so far on TV, and one thing that a lot of people are going to be disappointed in is they play on great courses. Mm-hmm. They have great infrastructure. My son went to it. He reported back to us on this very show. It's a first-class product, as much as a lot of people don't want to admit that, and they've got a lot of really good players. I'm excited to see my friends play, of course, wherever I've watched them, and you and I have kind of grown up with these guys. I'm excited to know more about the team. I hope people hear about the team a little bit more. I'm excited to see Cam Smith and Leishman and these guys on that team. Mm-hmm. And, I'm just going to follow this journey along, Diane. I watch it. I mean, I watch on Saturday. It's an easy watch. You go to YouTube, you can watch it while you're playing golf or on your cell phone. It's a very easy watch. Yeah. I like the scoreboard of where the teams are stacked so I can see where some of my guys are at. Like Pat Perez says, he says, I'm not going to win one of these things. I don't think I can. I mean, these guys are serious firepower at the top of the list up there. I said, mm-hmm. I haven't been beating DJ and Reed. I'm not even in any majors. I'm so for him, it was a no-brainer. But I'm just trying to support the team, shoot good number, try to count my score each day. And that's not a bad way to think. Yeah. So try to summarize my excitement. I'm looking forward to seeing some of these guys come out and play. There were some serious pairings. If you look at the top pairings, I mean, these are some serious pairings. Do you have one in front of you, like the teeing off on number 1 and 2?
Yeah, so the first group teeing off on hole 1, Henrik Stenson, Cameron Smith, Dustin Johnson. On hole 2, Bryson, Taylor Gooch and Joaquin Niemann. On hole 3, Harold Varner, Patrick Reed, Paul Casey. On 4, Anabar Lahiri, Kokrak, Poulter, I mean, the field is stacked. Looking at the group on hole 17, Phil Mickelson, Sergio Garcia, Mark Leishman, the field is stacked. Here's one thing that we haven't talked about that I want to mention quickly, and then I'll share my thoughts. But with this being a 48-man field every week, guys are getting bumped out. And with all these new names, I looked at some of the names that are not playing this week, and one of them is Henny Duplessis. And remember, he finished runner-up at the first event. So if you're not one of these big star power names that has signed a contract for a lot of money, and in your contract it says that you're going to be playing for, in every event, it's tough. There's pressure to play well.
Yeah, and I think that's a good point. I think where we are on the 48 players right now, I think there's about 30 of them signed, so there's 18 in limbo. Some of them get invited up. Of course, now LIV has bought and paid for the Asian Tour. Mm-hmm. So those guys, and they've elevated those fields down there. So if you're coming out of the Asian Tour, there's a relegation of about 6 players each week. So if you're at the top of the list on the Asian Tour, when the next LIV event comes around, you jump in. The 6 that are the worst that don't have a contract fall out. So I don't mind it. It's not as brutal as you may have sounded there, because there is another way back in. There is a circle to come back in.
Yeah. And yeah, I'll just finish by my thoughts. I will admit I've been a little bit sad about it this week, because I think that Cam Smith and Neiman leaving the PGA Tour is a blow. I mean, these are young, talented international players. Cam Smith being the number 2 player in the world. One thing that I do feel, and it's obvious, I have to have a loyalty to the PGA Tour because my brother plays on the PGA Tour. Legit, that is how he makes his money. And so and he's on the pack. I have to have a loyalty to him. I just think it's going to be so strange next year when the Players rolls around and Cam Smith lives basically on the other side of the course. The course is pretty much in his backyard, and he is not going to be there as defending champion, the PGA Tour's flagship event. And you see in the run-up the TV commercials with the winning moments from the year before, and the tickets are printed. All the advertising is going to be ready to go. Living in Jacksonville,
he won't have a gate like me. He won't have a Cam Smith gate.
Never have a gate. I think that's sad. I think that is going to be a weird situation for the tour. They're going to have to figure out how to manage that. So, and will he still be allowed to practice at TVC Sawgrass? And
I do think it's kind of odd. I read an article yesterday by Mr. Pelly from the DP World Tour, where these players will be allowed to play next week at Wentworth, and Rory, of course, was very upset about that. And I'm not really crazy about this moral high ground that some of these tour players think they're standing on to tell these other players that they're not actually welcome on this piece of grass when they certainly are. And Mr. Pelly wrote a letter that said they won't be in the Pro-Am. They won't be on any TV special groups, and they're not allowed to wear any LIV gear. Yeah. I'm thinking, I don't know how that's going to fly, because now you could be in a situation where you have Dustin Johnson and Bryson DeChambeau playing in the final group. I don't know if they're playing. I haven't even seen the list of the guys that are going. But what if you have Ian Poulter and Lee Westwood, who are Englishmen playing at Wentworth, and they're in the final group on Sunday? What are they going to do then? Yeah. Or Patrick Reed will have eight LIV logos on and not adhere to that rule, and something could happen then. He gets paired with Rory on the last day. So I don't think the players need to get involved in this quite as much as they are. I think, I know some of the European Tour players have told Poulter and Westwood to go in the corner and eat your cake and sit down and be quiet. I don't think that's the way to go. Well,
it just adds a whole new layer of drama that as golf spectators we're kind of interested in. It's a bit like a reality TV show right now. So, if it gets more eyes on it, then...
I cannot walk anywhere, Diane, and not be hit with what I think about LIV Golf. And I would say, Mike, I'm going to give you a final thought here. Some of my friends that live on the Northeast part of the US have told me that 90% of their club members are against LIV, and I'm down here in Houston. I would say it's about 90% for LIV.
Okay.
So what about you? Right in the backyard of the tour.
It's very anti-live.
Yeah.
Very anti-live, but that goes without saying.
A lot of people down here say, hey, it's the right of the player. They, if they want to go and sign for all the money, I'm going to watch golf. I'm going to watch my favorite swing or whatever. They're not as deep into it as we are, obviously.
I know. All right, Elk, well, it's always a fascinating conversation. And with LIV Boston kicking off tomorrow on Friday, we have 3 days of it. And we'll see who the eventual winner is. Also, if you have a question or like a point that you want to make, feel free to comment on this video on YouTube or on our social media, just at Secret Golf. And we always get a good response. We always have, I'd say it's a pretty evenly split response for and against LIV and everything that's going on, but it's just always good to hear your opinions and see what you think. So if you have any questions or comments, feel free to write them below this video, or as I said, on our social media, and we can address some of those as well. But thank you for listening, and we'll be back, well, to talk about the next LIV golf event and the start of the new season on the PGA Tour.